So I ultimately decided I was going to engine swap it. This is the first time this car has been out of the garage in over 9 months. The instant torque, it's nothing like a Miata now. Hello everybody, so as some of you may know, I Ecotec swapped my 1992 Mazda Miata, and I have received a lot of questions on through my emails, through Instagram, and through here on YouTube regarding the swap, and because I guess some things were left unclear, and then some nicher questions came up, so I'd like to answer some of those questions here today. Of course, the biggest question that I've received is regarding the price, and I'll get into that. I have a spreadsheet on all of my prices and what it ended up costing me, so you'll make sure you want to stick around for that. It's pretty interesting. And two, people want to know, is it fast? So I'll get into that too. But the first thing that I want to address is the difficulty of the swap. The swap itself was very straightforward. MT Motorsports with the swap kit sends over a really comprehensive guide to installing everything. However, small things do come up, and when they do, you're kind of on your own. I've called them many times, and I understand that they run a full-time shop, and that's why their lack of communication is somewhat justified. But I've called many times and emailed them, and they've only ever picked up the phone twice. If you plan on doing the swap on Facebook, there is a Ecotec, I believe it's called Ecotec Miata Owners Club. I'll put a link to it down in the description. It is a great group. It helped me out immensely. So if you're planning on doing the swap, make sure you check that out. If you guys have watched my video series that I made on the Ecotec Miata, you may know that I ordered the swap kit in October of last year, and it didn't come until March of this year. Like I said, I'm not faulting MT Motorsports for this. It was all custom fabricated, everything was very high quality. Once I actually got the kit, everything went very smoothly. Once I had the kit, it took me about 2 months to get the car done, and that was working on it probably about once a week during March and April, and then once we got into May, I was working on it a couple times a week, and then towards the end I was working on it every day, probably for about a week straight, and then I got it running, and I have had zero issues with it ever since, which is somewhat impressive. I have still yet to have gotten it tuned, but it doesn't feel terribly fast. I'm used to turbocharged cars. This is my first performance naturally aspirated build, and it doesn't feel as fast as a turbocharged car because the torque curve is linear. The torque and power curve is linear, sorry. But it keeps up with all of your turbo cars. In my video that I posted, part 3 of the Ecotec Miata build series, I said that it didn't feel as fast as my Mark 6 GTI. Well, I did a highway roll race with me driving the Ecotec Miata and one of my friends driving my Mark 6 GTI, which is tuned by Stratified, full bolt-ons, the whole 9 yards. Not sure what it's making, haven't had it dynoed yet, but it's a pretty quick car. And the Mark 6 GTI, still faster, but the Ecotec Miata keeps up with it. And for the price, I can't complain. Alright, so I mentioned that I have not gotten the car tuned yet, and there's a reason for that. I've contacted every local dyno tuning shop within 300 miles of my location, and I have not found a single place that is willing to touch a Ecotec swapped Mazda Miata. You'd think it'd be pretty simple, being that it's rear-wheel drive, and it's a GM platform now, but no, nobody wants to touch it. MT Motorsports offers a service where you could send them an E67 ECU like this, or I believe the other one's an E37, and they'll flash on a performance can tune for the Ecotec Miata swap. It's about $200. I'm probably just going to end up doing that. because I can't find anybody to tune my car. I wanted to get a nitrous tune for it because it's running the Nitrous Express Proton Plus kit, which I made a video on that. But yeah, can't find anywhere to tune it, so keep that in mind. I live kind of in the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania, but if you live somewhere like Florida or California, I'm sure you wouldn't have as much of a difficult time as myself. Something that a lot of people question about the Ecotec Miata swap is why on a manual transmission car do you need the automatic transmission flex plate? The flex plate is there because that's what your starter drives. You use an Ecotec starter to drive the Ecotec flex plate, and then that is connected to your Miata clutch, or your Miata flywheel, and then clutch. That goes to your transmission, your Miata transmission. A lot of people are confused as to why you use the flex plate, and it's simply because of the starter. I have heard rumors that MT Motorsports is trying to make a Miata compatible flywheel with the right gear tooth pattern as the Ecotec. I've heard a couple people talking about that, but I don't know anything for sure. That's all just speculation. But there is an inherent issue with the flex plate. First off, on the underside of the engine, it is exposed. So if you live on a dirt or gravel road, dirt and gravel is going to get up there and potentially cause problems. If that gets on your clutch is not going to work correctly. So that's a little bit of an issue. I've seen some people, they take just a piece of I saw somebody, they took like diamond plate, they cut it out and then they bolted it up there and it worked perfectly fine. I have yet to do something like that because I've only put right around 600 miles on the car since I did the swap, and it's mostly just been putting around town. I haven't done anything crazy in it yet. Saving that mostly for next year when everything else is done on the car. But another issue is the people that do go balls to the wall and then they take their car on the track. Some people experience the flex plate shattering. I'm assuming this is caused by vibrations because it's just the nature of the way that everything's sandwiched together. I'm assuming some imbalance can cause vibrations and then it just rattles it apart. So that's something to keep in mind. I'm pretty sure that's why that's the main reason why people are looking for a Miata flywheel with the Ecotec ring gear on it. Next, I want to talk a little bit about the fuel system. The fuel system, in the instructions, doesn't say hardly anything about the fuel system. I ended up using a Corvette C5, like the late C5, maybe even the early C6. I don't know Corvettes. I'm not 55 years old and having a midlife crisis. So I don't know a ton about Corvettes, but I know it uses a Corvette fuel filter, which has the fuel pressure regulator built into it. That's what the Ecotec's looking for. I adapted mine to the Miata, the lines that were already there. Some people, they do it up under the hood. I did mine back right under the fuel tank, so it looks nice and OEM and isn't in your way of things and doesn't look ugly. There's a million different ways you can do it. I kind of touched on it in my video. That's probably the only thing in the swap that gave me any issues. Was the fuel system, but it's very straightforward. If anybody needs further assistance with that, I have diagrams drawn, and I could take pictures under my car. Wiring too, I get a lot of questions about. Wiring in this car is very, very, very easy. Pretty much anybody with any amount of knowledge could probably do it. There is a guide on the Ecotec Miata Owners Club on Facebook. Gentleman, I forget his name, I will put a link to the page down in the description. He made a wonderful Excel spreadsheet where to connect everything, depending on what ECU you have. That's what I used, worked great, didn't have any problems with it. Wiring took me probably about a week just playing around with it. I feel confident now that I've done the swap, that if I had all of the parts together, I could probably do it in a weekend. It's just a lot of figuring things out, but once you get the hang of things, it's very, very simple. So the last thing that I'm going to touch upon is the biggest line for this swap, the biggest like punchline or whatever. The phrase that's thrown around is 200 horsepower. 200 horsepower, 200 torque. That's a little bit misleading. Most people see anywhere from 160 to 180. In some unicorn cases, you get close to 190, but I don't know of anybody without changing the cams or doing like non just bolt-on things getting 200 horsepower. I believe it is possible to adjust the VVT tables on the Mega Squirt 3, which once again requires rewiring the entire car. So if you have the swap done, now that I know about the Mega Squirt 3, kind of wish I would have just done that instead of using the E67 ECU. But if you're doing the swap, you haven't done wiring yet, I would highly recommend looking into the Mega Squirt 3 so you could tune the car yourself and have more control over fueling tables and the VVT table, and then you can get closer to that 200 horsepower mark. Alright, so this is the moment you've all been waiting for, the price breakdown of everything. So I'm going to start with the biggest thing you need, and the most expensive, and that's going to be the MT Motorsports Ecotec Miata swap kit. At the time of buying mine, it was $2,399. Pretty expensive. It's the most expensive part of the swap, other than the car. But it's not that far off from what I paid for my car, and it's rust-free, and when I bought it, it had 52,000 miles on it. So you could get a Miata for much cheaper than $2,399. Next up is arguably the most important thing, your LE5 Ecotec engine. I paid $399 for mine on eBay, and it came with the ECU and engine harness. Something to note is when you buy the engine, you want to get the ECU and the harness with it, so you know that all the connectors and everything work with it. You don't want to buy a LE5 out of an Equinox and then source this harness out of a Solstice and then get the ECU out of a Cobalt. That's where you're going to run into problems. I got all of my parts, all of the engine and the harness and the ECU, all from a 2006 Solstice, and everything went smoothly, had zero problems with it. Another fairly expensive part of it was the clutch kit from Flying Miata Stage 1 clutch kit. It was $400. Came with the clutch, the pressure plate, and the throwout bearing. And it's a great clutch, highly recommend it. It's a little bit on the expensive side, but keep in mind your stock Miata clutch was never designed to handle the power that the Ecotec Miata or the Ecotec engine puts out. So I would recommend getting a good clutch, and the Flying Miata Stage 1 clutch is a great clutch. Another expensive thing, relatively expensive thing, is the exhaust header, the exhaust manifold. I got mine off of slingmods.com. It is the 1320 Performance slingshot header. I paid $239 for mine, and it's a great header. It sounds good, looks really, really good. The welds on it are high quality. I recommend it. It leaves you plenty of room for routing for the exhaust. Great product. Another thing that you're going to need for your wiring is the patch harness. It contains your wiring harness for your gas pedal, your OBD2, and then just different things that are different wires that help it interface with the car since it doesn't have a body harness. It was $99 on MT Motorsports website. It was a fair price. Takes a long time for them to make it, but you kind of need it unless you're really handy with wiring. I couldn't be bothered with that. I would have rather just spent the $100 and saved my sanity. But yeah, that's something you're probably going to need. I got my flywheel on eBay for $74. It was it's a 1.8 Miata, an NA8 Miata flywheel. They're a little bit different than the NA6. You need to use the NA8 flywheel for the swap kit for whatever reason. I got mine for $74 on eBay, like I said. It came refinished. All I had to do, spray it down with brake clean, put it in the car, and I was good. On the topic of the flywheel, my automatic transmission flex plate, I paid $22 for it in a junkyard. Also, while I was in the junkyard, I bought my Cadillac CTS gas pedal. It was $4. Pretty expensive for a gas pedal. $4 whole. As I touched upon the fuel system earlier, you're going to be using the Corvette fuel filter. It's got the fuel pressure regulator built into it. It has quick connect fittings, which are fairly difficult to find. It took me a while to find the correct Dorman part numbers for them. If anybody needs those part numbers, feel free to contact me, but they were fairly expensive. It was about $60 just in fittings. I paid about $110 for all of the fuel system stuff, the fuel filter, the fittings, and the lines, and the clamps and everything. Everything works fine. It was just a little bit expensive at $110. Another thing that you're going to need, like I said, I haven't bought my tune yet, but you're going to need to flash VATs off of your ECU if you're using one of the GM ECUs. VATs is basically a security system that checks when you put your key in, is it the right key associated with the VIN. Since all of that system is deleted, you're going to put the key in, and then I believe it doesn't give you fueling. It still sparks, it just cuts fueling. So you go to turn the key and absolutely nothing happens. You're like, why isn't the car starting? It's because you need to flash VATs off of your ECU. You can buy HP tuners. It's fairly expensive. I ultimately found somebody on eBay that did it for about $70. Haven't had an issue. Literally my ECU just has VATs flashed off of it. It's still the stock Solstice map, and it works perfectly fine. I haven't had a single issue with it in about 600 miles that I've been driving it. And then all the little stuff, wire connectors, shop supplies, it was right around $200 for all that little stuff. If you have like a full-fledged shop, you can probably neglect that. But yeah, right around $200 for the MISC shop supplies, not too bad. Alright, so the final price that I paid for everything was $4,015. That sounds like a lot, but it's not really that bad, considering Flying Miata's turbo kits are well into the $3,000, and that disregards the condition of your factory engine that you have that might need to be repaired or replaced. I also had the original engine from mine. When I pulled it, it had, I believe, 55 or 56,000 miles on it. So relatively low miles. It had the common problem was burning oil and had lifter tick. But other than that, it was a pretty solid engine. I had a few issues with it. I did the timing and the water pump, and then it was fine from there. It was still burning oil and ticking. But I sold that for $600 on eBay. So that, if we neglect that price, if we subtract that price from the $4,015, that leaves us at $3,415. So that's total what I have invested into the engine swap, and honestly, for that price, I couldn't be happier. It's a great engine swap. You take it to a car meet, and it gets more attention than most things. It gets more attention than pretty much any other Miata, because car enthusiasts, they look at it and they're like, what is this 4-cylinder GM engine doing into a Miata? I gotta find who built this and ask them a bunch of questions. And then to the regular passerby, it looks stock, which is really cool. So yeah, that is my experience with the world's cheapest Miata engine swap. No other engine swap, unless you custom fab everything and pull the engine out of a junkyard, no engine swap comes even close to the price point that the Ecotec engine swap is for the Miata. Like I said, I couldn't be happier with it. It was a lot of fun doing it, and it was very rewarding because now I have a very nice car that attracts a lot of attention. If you guys have any questions, feel free to contact me by commenting or emailing me or messaging me over on Instagram at notanrs. And I'll be sure to see you guys next time. More stuff coming out for the Ecotec Miata soon. And I hope you all enjoyed. I'll see you all next time.